Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. This one is an entitled People Pro Revenge story. I've lived on my 5-acre property just outside of town for over 20 years now. It's nothing fancy, just a small house with some land that I use to grow vegetables and have a few chickens. The peace and quiet out here is exactly what I was looking for when I bought the place. That tranquility got disrupted real quick when I received a letter in the mail from the homeowner association president of the new neighborhood development that was built a few miles down the road. I had never even met this guy before, so I was confused why he was contacting me. In the letter, he stated that my property was going to be annexed into the homeowner association so that they could build a golf course that would extend onto my land. I was absolutely stunned when I read this. Not only was I not part of this homeowner association, but they wanted to build a golf course on my property without even asking me. The next day, I drove down to the flashy new development to try and straighten this out with the homeowner association president. I figured there must be some misunderstanding. I asked the receptionist if I could speak with Mr. Roberts, and she led me to his large corner office. He sat at an imposing desk and didn't even stand up to greet me. Mr. Roberts, I'm Frank Thomas. You contacted me about using part of my property for your new golf course. I just wanted to come down here in person to clarify that I'm not part of your homeowner association, I said. He looked annoyed to have to explain this to me. Yes, well, we need that acreage to complete the course, so we'll be annexing your property into the homeowner association. I couldn't believe the casual arrogance of this guy. You can't just take my land, I'm not selling, I said, getting angry now. Mr. Thomas, this new course will bring great value to the whole community, including increasing your property value. We're prepared to offer you $50,000 for the inconvenience. I scoffed at the measly offer. This is my home, it's not for sale. Mr. Roberts's polite facade was slipping as his frustration showed. I'm afraid you don't have much choice in the matter. The decision has been made by the Homeowner Association Board. We have very deep pockets, you won't win any legal challenge. Now it was getting personal. Listen here, you can't bully me into just handing over my property. I don't care how much money you have. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, I said sternly before standing up and walking out. Over the next few weeks, I gathered all the documentation showing my deed and title to the property. My lawyer confirmed that they had no legal standing to annex my land, but we kept preparing for their next move. Sure enough, a new letter arrived saying that they were initiating proceedings to claim a right-of-way through my property where the golf course would be built. They were basically trying to seize part of my land even though their development bordered it. I called my lawyer immediately, and he requested an emergency injunction to stop any construction or activity on my property. The judge fortunately agreed with our case and granted the injunction while everything got sorted out. It seemed that might make the homeowner association back off, but a few days later I came home to find land surveyors from the homeowner association trespassing and staking out areas of my property. They were trying to bulldoze ahead with planning the golf course. I wasted no time in calling the police to have them removed for trespassing. The cops came and escorted the angry surveyors off my property. I made it clear I would press charges for any more trespassing. At this point, my patience was done. I authorized my lawyer to file a lawsuit against the homeowner association president and board for harassment and attempting an illegal land seizure. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I dressed in my best suit, determined to get justice. My lawyer presented our compelling case of documents and evidence. The homeowner association lawyer tried to counter, saying their actions were legal and justified for the community's benefit. But the judge shut him down quickly, saying they grossly overstepped their bounds. In the end, the judge ruled fully in my favor, saying the homeowner association had absolutely no claim to annex or use any part of my private property. He prohibited them from any further activity on or near my land, delivering a restraining order against the homeowner association. I was awarded a settlement of $100,000 to be paid by the homeowner association for their egregious conduct. The community newspaper got wind of the story and ended up publishing a front-page article about the homeowner association's corruption and defeat. Members were outraged at how the homeowner association wasted community funds trying to build a golf course no one even wanted. At the next homeowner association election, the entire board was ousted, including the arrogant president. In the following months, I used the settlement money to build a beautiful new barn and expanded my vegetable fields. The homeowner association dissolved their plans for the golf course and left me in peace. I still live quite happily on my 5 acres today, with my property and lifestyle protected. This whole ordeal just goes to show you can fight back against injustice if you stay determined. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My Aunt Sarah is a hard-working, kind-hearted woman in her late 60s who has dedicated over 20 years of her life to Fabulous Finds, a women's clothing boutique catering to older clientele. She's one of their top sales associates, consistently exceeding her monthly goals despite only working part-time. Her loyal customers love how she pays attention to detail, helps them feel confident and beautiful, and goes the extra mile to make sure they find that perfect outfit. However, Sarah's admirable work ethic and empathy are lost on her boss, Janet. As the store manager, Janet rules with an iron fist and has zero tolerance for anyone who questions her authority. She's created a toxic environment where gossip and backstabbing are rampant, and employees are divided into cliques based on who kisses up to Janet the most. Janet's head crony is Brittany, the assistant manager who follows Janet around like a puppy. Together they make Sarah's life miserable through petty actions like giving her the worst shifts and hours, but Sarah turns the other cheek, not wanting to stoop to their level. Her focus remains on her customers and doing her best to avoid conflict. When COVID-19 hit, things at Fabulous Finds went from bad to worse. With commissions cut and hours reduced, Janet used the pandemic as an excuse to barely schedule Sarah at all. Mandatory masks were enforced, yet Janet often looked the other way when her favorite maskless customers came in. Sarah took every precaution to stay safe, including staying home from a close friend's funeral when it conflicted with her shift. Janet and Brittany gossiped that Sarah's friend must have been unhealthy, showing no empathy. Their cruel comments continued with each COVID-related death, refusing to acknowledge the pandemic's toll. Eventually, corporate required proof of vaccination, but Janet and Brittany forged vaccine cards to avoid getting the shot, falsely claiming vaccines were poison. When Sarah voiced concern for Janet's health and urged her to get vaccinated, Janet just mocked her. The final straw was when a customer shoplifted on Brittany's watch. Despite policy, Janet blamed Sarah and put her on probation. After decades of mistreatment, Sarah reached her breaking point. Luckily, Sarah had quietly collected recordings of Janet and Brittany's unprofessional behavior for years in anticipation of needing proof. She compiled the most damning clips of them mocking deaths and flouting vaccine policies. Sending these to corporate executives and local media, her exposé finally shed light on the inexcusable conduct she'd endured. The backlash was swift. Janet, Brittany, and their district manager cohorts were immediately fired for their deceit. Meanwhile, the CEO apologized profusely to Sarah for turning a blind eye. Sarah resigned on her own terms, finding a new boutique where she's valued. Many loyal customers followed her. And just desserts for Janet. Her husband left after discovering her affair. For over 20 years, Sarah didn't stoop to her bully's level despite immense mistreatment. She took the high road, quietly gathering evidence until the time was right to speak out against injustice. Her courage and integrity triumphed over cruelty and corruption. While just a small boutique, Sarah's willingness to expose wrongdoing sent ripples through the community. She exemplifies perseverance and patience, waiting for the opportune time to act with integrity. Through her experience, Sarah taught me that goodness and truth can prevail over even the most underhanded schemes. She handled her tribulations with grace, emerging wiser and ready to start fresh in a positive environment. The next one is Am I the A-hole story. Life's been pretty good since I moved into my new neighborhood a few months ago. The neighbors all seem friendly enough, always waving or stopping to chat when I'm out walking my dog. Well, all except for Brad, who lives in the house next door. Don't get me wrong, Brad seems nice enough on the surface. He's married with a couple of young kids, has a good job, and is always maintaining his home and yard. But there's something about the guy that just rubs me the wrong way. I started noticing it a few weeks ago. I'd catch Brad standing at his window just staring in the direction of my house. At first I figured he was just zoning out, daydreaming or whatever, But then I noticed he was holding binoculars up to his face. Now, I don't consider myself a paranoid person, but this guy was definitely watching me. The first time I saw him doing it, I just quietly closed my blinds and went about my day. But then it kept happening. I'd be sitting on my back patio and see Brad peering over from his second-story balcony, binoculars in hand, pointed right at me. Talk about creepy. Well, yesterday was the last straw. I was reading outside when Brad's binoculars came flying over the fence between our yards and landed right at my feet. I looked up just in time to see Brad duck back from the balcony railing. He knew I saw him that time. I took the binoculars inside and wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to just chuck them in the trash, but I figured I should at least give Brad a chance to explain himself first. Later that evening, I heard a knock at my door. As expected, it was Brad. He gave me some speech about how the binoculars must have accidentally fallen into my yard. Then he started begging me to just give them back, no questions asked. He said they were special military-grade binoculars he's had for years. I told Brad I'd return them, but only if his wife came to get them. I wanted to confirm if she even knew what her husband had been up to. Brad got real flustered and tried to talk me out of involving her, but I stood firm that those were my conditions. Well, Brad threw a fit, accusing me of trying to cause drama and problems in his marriage. But hey, I'm not the one spying on my neighbor, am I? He finally stormed off in a huff, still binocularless. I feel a little bad getting his wife involved if she's clueless about all this. But at the same time, Brad's behavior is beyond inappropriate. I guess I need some outside opinion. Am I being reasonable here, or am I the jerk in this situation? Comment 1, not the a-hole. You're not being unreasonable at all, and you have every right to feel uncomfortable about this behavior. Spying on your neighbor through binoculars is absolutely not okay. Involving his wife is a reasonable condition to get the binoculars back, since at this point you can't trust Brad's excuses. Just because he's otherwise friendly doesn't mean he gets a pass for violating your privacy like this. Comment 2. Everyone sucks here. Brad is definitely creepy for spying on you, and his excuses are lame. But getting his wife involved will likely just cause drama that isn't necessary. You got the binoculars away from him, so that's a win. Maybe the best thing now is to just avoid further confrontation and keep your distance from Brad going forward. Escalating the situation won't solve anything and could damage neighborly relations long term. Comment 3. You are the a-hole. I get why his behavior made you uncomfortable, but it sounds like you're blowing this way out of proportion. People zone out and do weird things sometimes without meaning any harm. Maybe he has a habit of watching birds or some innocent explanation. By involving his wife, you could really damage their marriage over what amounts to an accident. Return the binoculars privately and have a talk with Brad expressing your boundaries, but don't try to get him in trouble without cause. Update. Thanks to everyone who chimed in with their perspectives. It was helpful to get outside opinions on this weird situation. I wanted to provide an update on what transpired after my last post. When Brad's wife came to get the binoculars, I explained everything to her calmly and directly. She was obviously surprised and uncomfortable hearing about Brad's behavior. She thanked me for bringing it to her attention rather than keeping it secret. As it turns out, Brad has some mental health issues he hasn't been properly managing. His wife told me he has episodes where he fixates on perceived threats, even if they're totally imaginary. She said she was grateful I stood my ground about her retrieving the binoculars personally, as that prompted her to have a serious talk with Brad about getting help. Shortly after, Brad came to apologize. He acknowledged what he did was unacceptable, and promised not to harass or spy on me further. I made it clear that any additional strange behavior wouldn't be tolerated, and I wouldn't hesitate to get authorities involved if needed. He seemed genuinely remorseful about the whole thing. Since then, it's been quiet and peaceful around here. Brad keeps to himself as far as I can tell. I still avoid interacting with him directly, but I'm glad his wife is aware of the situation now and can hopefully get him proper support. Overall, I feel like I handled it reasonably while also standing up for myself instead of ignoring a real threat to my safety and privacy. The resolution protects both families moving forward. The next one is entitled People Story. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends and they hit it off. I was 18 and in college when I met him, and we never had a close relationship. However, he always seemed to think of himself as a family friend and was extremely infantilizing and condescending towards me. Every time I saw him, I tried to tell myself it wasn't that bad, only for him to prove me wrong less than a minute later. Harold would disrespect my boundaries, say things like, "You're not 19, you're a baby," while I was talking to other people, and patronize me, my education, or my hobbies whenever he had the chance. He always noticed that it annoyed me, to which he'd playfully ask if I hated him. I always said no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came the day Harold interrupted a barbecue to say, "I really like you, even though you're an impolite brat." I was 20 years old. I'd been quiet all day, working on a paper during the barbecue, but replied patiently and politely whenever anyone addressed me. And even if that hadn't been the case, I knew he didn't have the right to talk to me like that. After that, I started making an effort to avoid any events I knew he'd be attending. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They threw a small lunch party at my dad's apartment. I went there with my fiancée and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in months, but he still talked to me as if I were a dumb child. Never mind that I'm engaged, a mother, and 26 years old. I spent the whole party ignoring his helpful advice about me being too young to get married or be a mom. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping. There's a bassinet in my old room. He woke up hungry, so I went to breastfeed him and excused myself from the party for a while. I got back to jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I was probably struggling if my son was managing to leech me away for so long. He went on to interrupt a conversation I was having with another of my dad's friends to question pretty much everything about my parenting. He doesn't even have custody of his daughter, by the way, and to make more comments about my age. I decided I couldn't take it anymore after he asked if I'd thought about giving my baby up for adoption. I got my son and told my fiancée we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we got to the door, Harold came to ask why we were leaving. I tried to make up an excuse, but he kept trying to make us stay. After a small back and forth, he jokingly asked if I hated him. And this time I said, "Yes, I do. Can we go now?" He didn't say anything, and we left. On the way home, my fiancé said he was proud of me. My father called this morning to say the opposite, and we had a small fight, but ultimately decided to drop the subject. I'm sure this isn't over, but if it keeps going, it won't be because of me. This is far from my proudest moment, and a small part of me regrets it, but I'm done with that guy. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.